community embodies the pioneering spirit of America. We're a nation that loves adventure, and you love adventure, that celebrates risk-taking and that embraces faith and family as the true center of American life.
Next stop, women. On the surface, this is about protecting women and the Me Too movement.
Brett's assault on me drastically altered my life.
Christine Blasey Ford had a different agenda.
He will always have an asterisk next to his name. When he takes a scalpel to Roe v. Wade, we will know who he is, we know his character, and we know what motivates him. And that is important. It is important that we know, and that was part of what motivated Christine.
For them, too, it's all about abortion. It's all about protecting Roe v. Wade. In the Church of Gender Identity Politics, abortion has become the ultimate sacrament. My daughter Danielle is the author of the forthcoming book, The Choice, The Abortion Divide in America. How radical are the Democrats on this issue today?
You can be 9 months pregnant, dilating, going into labor, and get an abortion. And the Democrats really celebrate that.
New York passing a sweeping abortion law, allowing many abortions up until the day of the baby's birth.
They lit up the One World Trade Center pink to celebrate this as women's empowerment, women's freedom, abortion is health care.
How do we know that the contents of a woman's womb are, you might say, not her own?
I'm in my 20s, so I see my friends, let's say, post on social media that they're pregnant, or they'll post a photo of their ultrasound. People will comment on it. And so we can see that when you step outside of the abortion debate, you can see that everyone knows that it's a child. They know that, oh, look, it's a family of 3 now. So only when you go into the abortion debate do people say, oh, no, this is a cluster of cells. But the reality of what it means to be pregnant is with child. Even if you look at first trimester abortions, the baby has a head, a nose, a face, fingers, toes, a heartbeat, and we also know that it even feels pain because it secretes things like cortisol, hormones that we also secrete when we're under duress.
Should my right to life be dependent on whether I am a wanted child or not?
Your human rights are intrinsic. Your value comes from the fact that you're a human being. And I think we should all be able to support basic human rights, which is the right to life, the right literally just to be born.
My body, my choice! My body, my choice!
What about the right to choose?
My choice ends at the point where it reaches you. The left likes to talk about pro-choice, and the choice to do what? And that is the choice to kill. It's the choice to take another's life, a life that is not your own.
Sexual orientation. We've had gays, lesbians, and bisexuals for centuries. What's new is that this has now become an ideology. I spoke with Scott Pressler, a gay conservative who organizes cleanups in major cities.
Making Baltimore beautiful. That was the goal as trash cleanup efforts continued today in West Baltimore.
Conservative activist Scott Pressler put the all call on his social media. There is a common thread among many of the volunteers.
Scott, here we are in downtown Houston. It's the black neighborhood, it's the brown neighborhood. What are you, a white, gay, conservative, doing here?
I feel a responsibility. I'm a private citizen. You know, we don't need the big government to do this. I'm going to come in, do the job that deep democratic cities like Houston haven't been doing, and sweep up trash in an act of love.
What cities have you been to?
Well, we started in Baltimore City, and we picked up 29 tons of trash. Then we went to Los Angeles, California, and picked up 50 tons of trash. We went to Chicago on 63rd Street, dangerous territory.
Now, trash is a symbol for a lot that's gone wrong in these neighborhoods, right? Broken families, high crime rates, terrible schools. A lot of money has been spent to fix these places up. Why do you think they've never gotten fixed?
I think, quite frankly, the Democrats don't want to solve the problem because they want to be the solution. And look at what we're doing. Private citizens coming together, putting on our work boots, rolling up our sleeves, and doing the work ourselves.
The conservative philosophy.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you feel comfortable calling yourself a gay conservative?
I'm a bleeding heart conservative who happens to be gay. I don't let my identity define me. So the Democrats have created this game of identity politics, and they have the oppression Olympics, where if you're not black or gay or a woman or disabled, then it's almost like you don't exist. I came out as gay after the Pulse nightclub terrorist attack. I want to make sure that the people coming into our country don't want to murder me. I feel like that's a pretty low bar to set, don't you think?
Pressler's fear points to a dangerous element of identity socialism, the connection to radical Islam. International businessman Alan Bender has told us he has the inside scoop on radical Islam's sinister scheme for America. Are you a Muslim?
I am a secular Muslim. I'm married to a Christian.
And you're based in Canada. You're a member of the Liberal Party. You have been what could be loosely called in the Middle East a fixer.
Canadian-based businessman Alan Bender, seen here to the right of Walid bin Talal, who Mr. Bender represented in settlement negotiations.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the configuration of politics in the Middle East.
The Iranian regime actually believes that there is no coexistence with America. The path of the Islamic Sharia is the only way. And that leads to a clash between the pro-American states in the Gulf region and the Iranian regime. The Iranian government controls the government of Qatar. The Iranians don't pay, so they use Qatari money to pay whomever they need to pay.
Now, you have had some experiences which I think remarkably suggest that not only are the Iranians and the Qataris trying to influence the politics of the Middle East over there, but they're actually trying to influence American politics over here.
During my meetings with the top officials in Qatar to discuss potential major investments in North America, and they reiterated the fact that they produce more gas and oil than any other country in the region. So they don't really need the return on their investments. However, their investments in North America is a powerful weapon to influence the elections and see to it that the outcome will fit the Iranian interest.
Which is to defeat Trump.
To defeat Trump. They said we are looking forward to the defeat of Trump. And then we will see the first Friday prayer taking place in the White House as a symbol of our victory and the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Her name is Ilhan Omar. She's a former refugee from Somalia. She's a Muslim American, and she is now the Minnesota State House Representative.
What did the Qataris tell you about her?
They refer to her as Sister Ilhan, and to them, she is the jewel of their political crown. And they told me face to face that they financed her, heavily financed her, and they groomed her. And they said, you don't need to worry about skeletons being found because the media will bury it. We've seen more than 6 different scandals involving Ilhan Omar. Nobody investigated her.
Campaign finance violations, for example.
Exactly.
How do they control her?
Her weakness, money and sex.
How do they actually use their financial leverage to either influence or control people like Ilhan Omar?
America is a country of law and rules. We do it indirectly, and there are always loopholes that allows us to get through. I actually brought up, what about the media? He said, I think we're almost at the top of controlling that. And we have a lot of journalists who are on our payroll.
You're actually saying that these Islamic governments are making direct monetary payments to members of the mainstream media?
Correct.
These are not remote figures, but people in mainstream institutions?
That is correct.
What you're saying is that there is serious Middle Eastern and specifically radical Islamic intervention coming from abroad into U.S. politics.
Exactly. And I think it's more dangerous than the so-called Russian collusion.
But doesn't identity socialism and radical Islam make strange bedfellows? I raised the question with Imam Muhammad Dahidi.
Any Islamist will tell you that America is the enemy of Islam. They're chanting death to America every single day. I did it for 7 years. Death to America, death to Israel.
What is the fundamentalist and jihadi agenda for America?
The future of America has to be Muslim.
So here's a paradox. In America, we have a political left. It's a progressive left. As you know, it's sexually permissive. And this political movement appears strangely allied with radical Islam. Can you explain this?
When I was an extremist, Islamist, fundamentalist, I would only vote left.
Why is that?
I saw them as very stupid. I would fear the conservatives because they come with principle. That's not someone they can brainwash. But the left, I know they have no values and no principles to begin with. I dare you to find one Islamic extremist that votes for Donald Trump. Would never do it. They'd give their vote to the leftist who wants to run around in pride parades. And Islamic extremists are against gays and homosexuals and transgenders, but they want the left to go and get busy with that. They want them, go speak about the climate, go speak about abortion, go kill yourselves, go do that. Ilhan Omar, she's fighting for abortion rights, and all the other, my body, my choice, yes, go do that. But would she have an abortion? Never. Never. Would she kill a Muslim in her stomach? Never.
What's your take on her?
Fundamentalist, extremist, Islamist, jihadi ideology, a threat to national security, ISIS with lipstick.
Now, would it be fair to say that what Ilhan Omar wants is for all of America to look like her community?
Without a doubt. Firstly, the Muslims in Ilhan Omar's district are more radical than radicals in the Middle East.
New report by Congress says more than 250 Americans have attempted to join ISIS. 1 in 4 is from Minnesota, many of them former refugees.
Do you feel more comfortable living under American law, or do you feel more comfortable living under Sharia law?
Sharia law. I'm a Muslim, I prefer Sharia law.
You prefer Sharia law over American law?
Of course, yeah.
What's the relationship between radical Islam and socialism in America?
Votes and common interest.
The Muslims are delivering the votes
Yes.
through their leaders.
Yes.
And what do the socialists and the progressive left give in exchange?
They give them a platform. They give them the media. They protect them.
If we have Islamic domination, which is the goal, as you suggest, will Americans become strangers in their own country?
Americans who have values, who believe in freedom of speech, freedom of belief, freedom of religion, Americans who want to raise their families as Christians, they will feel as strangers.
Treason, division, and the politics of fear and exclusion. This is their socialist dream for America. So what is the left's blueprint for socialism?
And my policies most closely resemble what we see in Norway, in Finland, in Sweden.
But it may be better to consult an actual expert, former Danish Prime Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen.
I know that some people in the US associate the Nordic model with some sort of socialism. Therefore, I would like to make one thing clear. Denmark is far from a socialist planned economy. Denmark is a market economy.
The major political parties from the center left and the center right would oppose many of the proposals of Bernie Sanders.
Scandinavian countries are capitalist in wealth creation, but socialist in wealth distribution. For Swedish historian Johan Norberg,
it's really not a way of taking from the rich and giving to the poor, which is the perspective or the hope of many American and European intellectuals. intellectuals when they look at the tax levels in Sweden. What we do instead is that we tax consumption. We have a 25% VAT consumption tax in Sweden, which means that the poor they pay the highest proportion of that.
The Scandinavians don't soak the rich, they soak the whole society. Scandinavia is not the left's real model. So what is?
I now pronounce you man and wife.
Where did Bernie go for his honeymoon? Stockholm? No, Moscow.
You know, it's funny, sometimes American journalists talk about how bad a country is because people are lining up for food. That's a good thing.
Where did Michael Moore go to champion healthcare? Copenhagen? No, Havana.
The Cuban people have free, universal health care. They become known around the world as having one of the best healthcare systems.
This is not a normal Cuban hospital. This is.
This is the emergency room?
Yeah.
Doctor, how old are these syringes? That thing looks like it's from the last century. Do you have sufficient facilities to sterilize all these old syringes? You know, most of your shelves have nothing.
Nothing.
The hospital in Moore's movie is only for foreigners who can pay and elite members of the Cuban regime. So Moore is colluding with the Cuban socialists to intentionally mislead his viewers. How these progressive leftists idolize socialist dictators.
My friend, President Chavez. He is one of the most important forces we've had on this planet.
Like a sick Hollywood love story.
How long has it been? We can bring it back again. Anything to spend.
Yes, this is the left's real model, Venezuela. My wife Debbie was born in Venezuela. She now mourns that her once prosperous country is now in ruins. Many Venezuelans fled to America, like my wife's friend. Gabby Franco was the first female shooter to represent Venezuela at the Olympics. She showed off her skills on History Channel's Top Shot. She and Debbie are big fans of the Second Amendment.
One of the things that is, I feel, a parallel between the Venezuelan left and the American left is their obsession with gun control.
Venezuelan authorities has vowed to crack down on guns as a pillar of domestic security policy.
It's, you know, like everything starts with a lie. This is for gun violence control.
Safety.
And at the end of the day, how can people rise against the government when they are disarmed?
What's striking to me is the closeness of this gun parallel. But it's only the beginning of these parallels between the two countries. One of them would be identity politics.
Right, so Hugo Chavez won the election in 1999, and he was indigenous. Venezuela is a very multicultural society. It has Italians, it has Germans, but he felt like there were not enough indigenous people in government. It was too white for him. So he decided to demonize the white people in Venezuela.
Another parallel is the demonization of the rich.
Much of the attack of the rich was for those entrepreneurs making a living, selling goods and services. So he decided to put a stop to that, setting price controls. So it drove many businesses out of business and out of Venezuela.
What about wealth confiscation?
Hugo Chavez had his national television show where he showed walking down the street and taking any apartment or any house he wanted and giving it to the homeless.
And today, if you leave your home in Venezuela and you go abroad and you come back,
someone else will be in it.
For Ruben Barbosa, the future looks bleak. Over the past 40 years, he's built up a thriving cattle and dairy operation in western Venezuela. But this month, Hugo Chavez's government expropriated 30 farms in the region, and his could be next.
Sé que cuando yo desarrolle todo mi...
I developed all of this using my own intelligence and my own labor. And now that everything is going well, the government comes along and steals it from me, strips me of my land and my ideas.
There are more than 100 people working here. If there's an expropriation, we're all going to be out of work.
Let's turn to a different parallel, and this is the war on fossil fuels. How is it possible in a country that is so rich in resources that you would have electricity blackouts and gas lines for people to fill up the car?
Well, first of all, Hugo Chavez brought all his bureaucrats to take over. They had no idea how to run an oil company whatsoever. The American and British oil companies that were in Venezuela were basically run out.
All the engineers, everybody who knew what to do the job, they had to leave the country.
For fossil fuels, Hugo Chavez hated them, and he decided to do hydro energy instead. Venezuela had many, many droughts, therefore caused rolling blackouts.
Another parallel is the left-wing militants.
There's a group of criminals called colectivos in Venezuela, and they're very similar to our Antifa people here.
Colectivos got support from the government of Hugo Chavez and work as the government's strong arm, intimidating and even killing members of the opposition.
Anybody raise their voice against certain ideologies of the government, they get terrorized by this group.
Le hago un llamado a los colectivos, a todos. Llegó la hora de la resistencia activa.
I grew up in a socialist country, India, which moved toward capitalism. And so India is doing a lot better. But Venezuela, which moved in the opposite direction from a capitalist society to socialism, seems to have crumbled.
This is how Venezuelans spend most of their time now, in line not for luxuries, but basics.
I moved from Venezuela to the Rio Grande Valley, and I thought I was moving into a third world country after coming from Venezuela because it was so wealthy. We had everything we needed and wanted.
It seems there's one class of people who are living pretty well. Who are they?
They're called the Chavistas. They're socialists. They kept their cars, they kept their way of life. They don't seem to have any problem with food shortage there. Hugo Chavez died a billionaire.
Under Chavez and now his successor Maduro, Venezuelan socialism started out as democratic, but quickly became authoritarian. Venezuela is where the Democrats are taking us, whether they admit it or not.
Today I ask every member of the Maduro regime, end this nightmare of poverty, hunger, and death for your people. Let your people go. Set your country free.
We've seen gun control as a socialist tactic in Venezuela. So how does the politics of gun control play out in America? Biden used to be a strong supporter of gun rights.
Buy a shotgun. Buy a shotgun.
Not anymore.
If I'm elected and I'm coming for you and gun manufacturers, I'm going to take you on and I'm going to beat you. I'm the only one who's done it.
And who does Biden want to work with on gun control?
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47.
They claim that guns are to blame for tragic events like this.
911, what is your emergency?
I think I hear gunshots.
Are you at the school?
My daughter has no voice. She was murdered last week, and she was taken from us. Shot 9 times on the 3rd floor. We, as a country, failed our children.
Andrew Pollack, a grieving father, has investigated the roots of the Parkland shooting.
There's not a moment that goes by that I don't think of her.
And your book is titled Why Meadow Died. Why did Meadow die?
They wanted to avoid
and end the school to prison pipeline and end suspensions and expulsions. So they just wanted to stop holding kids accountable. In Broward, children were allowed 4 misdemeanors per school year without ever getting introduced to the judicial system.
Now, the shooter himself, he had a history.
My name is Nick, and I'm going to be the next school shooter of 2018. You're all going to die.
45 calls to this individual's house without an arrest. And this is after we already familiar with Columbine, Sandy Hook.
One of the things you say that I find very striking is the fact that the policies of the school had the effect of taking kids who were very disturbed and violent and classifying them in a sense as handicapped.
You could have a kid that's emotionally disturbed, or they call it oppositional defiant disorder. It's ODD, which is another word for like a psychopath, that's a juvenile. And they label them special needs, and that's what makes them untouchable within the school district.
The man whose job it was to keep students safe was arrested today. Surveillance tape shows the school resource officer never entered the building as bullets flew.
In some of the video that I saw from the body cam, you could see a deputy getting out of his car, and you could hear the gunshots that could be killing my daughter, and he's taking his time going to the back of his car to put his vest on, and he never goes even in the building.
Do you think that if there was a coach or a teacher or teachers who were trained and armed, that your daughter might be alive today?
I know as a fact that my daughter would be alive.
What have you found the role of the media to be in covering these shootings?
They don't want to hear the truth, the media, and I almost feel like they gloat when there's a mass shooting, and that before the victims are even buried and the facts are out, they're blaming the president, or they're blaming the scary rifle. They want to attack the Second Amendment. That's their agenda. The Second Amendment means a lot to me now because, like I said, my daughter was on the 3rd floor and no one came to save her. A lot of times you call 911, it doesn't mean they're coming to help you. So why should I give up that right to defend myself?
Now we turn to the socialist left's biggest allies, Hollywood and the media. The left owns these megaphones which dominate our culture. Actor Isaiah Washington is best known for playing Dr. Burke on the hit show Grey's Anatomy. So here you are, you're an African American, you're a patriot, you're an anti-communist, you're a veteran, you're a lonely guy in Hollywood.
Yeah, I have no friends. I have no friends.
And here you came to Hollywood, you as an outsider.
I always knew that it would be very difficult for a personality like me to actually be in Los Angeles. So I've always considered myself a Frederick Douglass Republican without a home. But actually, it's just destiny for me because now I feel like I am at home.
Are you saying that you feel more at home in the GOP as Trump defines it?
I feel more comfortable because Trump, yeah, I have to give the credit to the President Donald Trump.
What is it about Trump that drew you?
I lived in New York in 1988. I know who he was. He was a hero to me. He was a billionaire. Before he became president, he was someone you looked up to. Every rapper was singing about trying to be Donald Trump. I read The Deal twice, The Art of the Deal. I know it.
I'm assuming Hollywood has always had left-wing tilt. It seems like what's different now is not that Hollywood is left, but that Hollywood has become so insular and monopolistic about being left-wing that it actually terrorizes people or attempts to.
You have to understand that the majority of the people that are running Hollywood were abused in most southern states because of maybe their sexual orientation or being creative or being different. So they've been treated poorly and they've been pushed and they find themselves going to Hollywood to be more liberal, be more free. Everything is okay. No behavior. There's no boundaries.
The revenge of the hurt, right?
Yeah, revenge of the hurt.
Well, it also explains the sort of amoralism of Hollywood because when you feel repressed, then anything goes becomes a sign of freedom.
Good point.
Even more influential than Hollywood is the mainstream media. Trump calls them fake news.
The press has become so dishonest. Democrats, radical left, and their media partners standing right back there.
What is fake news? It's not just about bias, it goes much deeper. In the early 1970s, Saul Alinsky discovered that George H.W. Bush was scheduled to give a speech. Some activists wishing to protest Bush came to Alinsky for advice. Alinsky had a radical idea. An idea that would transform the tactics of the socialist left.
The people of the world agitate for free expression and free thought that only liberty allows.
Don't compare Bush to the Klan. Come dressed up like the Ku Klux Klan. The media will do the rest. Is there any limit to the deception of the mainstream media? When a presidential nominee is involved in a sex scandal, it's obviously a big story. Meet Larry Sinclair. What do you do for a living, Mr. Sinclair?
Currently, I run a nonprofit in Cocoa building affordable housing.
Now, in 2008, when Obama announced his candidacy for president, you made some explosive allegations about him that dated back to some events that occurred in 1999. Is that the year that you met Barack Obama?
It is.
Where did you meet him?
Outside of a bar in Chicago.
What were you doing?
I was on a night out and had asked a limo driver if he knew anyone that would be interested in showing me around the town, and it was clear for the limo driver that I was looking for someone to enjoy the night with. The introduction was made through the limo driver.
And what happened?
We had a few drinks. I had made some comments about wanting Coke, so we got in the limo and left, and we started drinking. I started snorting. He started smoking. I actually put my hand on his knee and started to rub up his thigh, and I performed oral sex on Barack Obama. The following day, I actually get a knock on my hotel room door in Gurnee, Illinois, only to find Barack Obama standing in front of it. He had actually come back for seconds. I performed oral sex on him in the hotel room at the Comfort Inn and Suites in Gurnee, Illinois.
Were there drugs involved on the second night as well?
There was.
Who produced those?
He actually brought those with him.
Now, Obama at that time was a state senator.
I actually had no idea who he was.
And then when did you find out that it was Barack Obama?
Watching the 2004 DNC convention.
Thank you very much, everybody. God